is it that a golfer could go up to a professional golfer or a really good golfer and be impressed with all the clubs that he has, knowing that every one of those clubs had a little purpose and he needed each one of them? But they would go up to a bass fisherman who had 4 or maybe even 8 rods out on his deck and think, why has he got all them rods? He doesn't need all that. Well, you do need all of them.
Absolutely.
There's so many different techniques that are necessary to become a good bass fisherman. Yes, you do need all that stuff. So get over it.
Right.
Get you some rigs out there, and don't go out with 1 and 2 rods and start changing in the middle of your day's fishing, because probably that rod isn't the right rod for the next technique that you want to try. So with that said, and after hearing all the good stuff that Brett Hyde gave us on drop shotting, I wanted to rig it up, man.
And the amazing thing is those guys started the drop shot deal. Those guys are masters of it.
They really are.
And I've tried to suck as much info out of the Brett Heights and Aaron Martins and Skeet Reese's as you can. And they started, number one, and most importantly, is how you rig that hook. You don't want that hook just kind of slunched down, hanging down. You want that hook kicked straight out, because that's going to have a major effect on how the action of your worm on there works. And
incidentally, I would never tie a rig with one of those guys around.
Absolutely
I would go
not.
Hide somewhere.
Well, that's why I'm not going to lie. When you yell at me for sitting in a parking lot for hours just staring at those guys, that's what I'm doing. And what I don't even know the name of the knot that this is. It's similar to a Palomar but different. And all you're going to do is you've got your hook there, and this is just an oversized hook, an oversized line to really show, you know, in a scale to get that hook to kick out.
In other words, we wouldn't actually use this size line. We wouldn't use that big of a hook, as a matter of fact. So,
but the thing we're trying to get, number one, is to get that hook to kick out. And the other question that we get asked a lot, well, how do you know the length between your hook and your weight down here? And a simple way to put it is just stay between 12 inches to 18 inches, somewhere in there.
And you're going to be okay.
You're going to be okay. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to come through the front eye of that hook. There's the point. You're going to come through there and pull you about 1.5 to 2 feet of line, and come back through the back side of that hook and make a great big lasso.
And this is not easy to tie.
This is not easy to tie.
It's not easy to demonstrate either, so we're going to do the best we can.
This will take the better, I mean, this knot took me the better side of a couple months to really learn it. So now all we have is we have 2 tags on this end. This line's going to go back to your reel, and then a loop, and then the tag. And what I do is pull that tag, because that tag end's where your weight's going to go.
And have more than you need.
More than you need.
You can cut it off.
And what I do is I hold all 4, and I spin that hook about 5 or 6 times, just like you're doing a regular clinch knot. Come through that bottom loop. I'm doing a horrible job of showing that. You bring it through that bottom loop, and just let that loop set there and cinch it down, okay? So now all you have a loop, and you have a tag, and then the line going back to your reel. Snip that loop, and this is kind of the critical part. When you snip that loop right there, we're going to take the tag, and this is what's going to make the point of your hook kick out. Okay?
This is so important right here.
Right here is the most important time. You're going to put that tag end right back through the top of the hook, pull it through, and what that'll do is make that hook
stand straight out.
Kick straight out. And that right there is the key to that whole knot, is to come back through the top, right where that hook's at, come through the top of that hook, and that will make it kick out every time. Then we're going to take your tag, just put your weight on the bottom of it, and
this is a drop shot weight.
Just a regular drop shot weight. You know, right there, like we said, that's
you're looking at about heavier.
A little bit heavier, but we're showing it for scale. Measure off about 18 inches of line, bite it, you're ready to jam. Oh, terrible job there. What you do, you just crimp it in there. What I always do when
I tie a knot.
yeah, just tie a little shoe knot, just a regular, just like your knot on your shoes, and that right there.
He's ready to go. And
ready to go.
then here, I'm going to be the rod tip here.
Rod tip there.
And I'm going to set that down on the bottom.
And if you put your
and then you go ahead and put the worm on.
Put your worm on that. And you are ready to go. And the amazing thing about you know, working with a drop shot is when you pull that tight.
Of course, Mark, in the water, that worm is going to stick straight
and
out.
if you pull that tight right there, I'll hold the bottom. That's what it's going to look like in the water, sitting there like that. And what ends up happening is the amazing thing about a drop shot from every other application, a Texas rig, a Carolina rig, the bite is truly different from everything else. You don't feel the hard gunk.
No, you sure don't.
What I always say that bite feels like is a rubber band. It'll just kind of seesaw with you, and you're just going to pull back. You're not going to knock.
And you are not going to jerk. You are just going to kind of put everything in gear, because you have to remember. And Mark, I'll try to throw this out here. This is my drop shot box, and
you think you're going bluegill fishing looking at that stuff.
That's right. And I'm setting out a couple of hooks here, and this is the real size hook you would use, or close to it, not the big hook you were demonstrating with it. As a matter of fact, here's the real worm you would use. This is a little robo worm. It's not very big, and I would just barely hook the nose of that worm, and man, would it look enticing in that setup to a fish. And also, I don't know what size line you're using there, but it's way out. It's way out of line. You would fish. I would think you would fish from 6 to 8, maybe from 8 to 10.
And that's the one thing that, you know, that's what we traditionally have learned with a drop shot is the light line and the light hooks and the small baits. But we're starting to see guys also use it in that heavy application. And one of those,
yes, they have.
The Bassmaster Classic that was in Shreveport, Aaron Martin's 20-pound line, a bigger gauge hook, and a great big robo worm. So you're starting to see guys adapt that deep water, light line, and small hook technique to more of a power drop shotting rig.
They're actually just switching from a finesse rig to a power rig.
Exactly.
And just stepping up almost with the exact rig you tied up there as a demonstration.
Upgrading the entire setup.
And this is, you know, again, I know we've already talked about this, but then in order for this to work, you need the right line, then you need the right rod.
The whole thing.
You just can't, in that whole chain, you can't have something that doesn't belong there.
And I always go back to, if you ever wanted to get a true idea of how to set the hook, how to play a fish, if you watched any of the tournaments we've had in Buffalo, New York, I think 11 out of 12 of our anglers on the final day were doing that, and it's a total different gig. You don't want to, what I always say, you don't want to do the Bassmaster hook set where you look awesome. It's for any of our folks that have gone ice fishing, how you just kind of come up like that. It's the same.
Well, you know, Zona, when I was a youngster fishing off the bank, I used to do what Dad called tight lining, which was with just my hook and a little a split shot on there, and I'd sit there and I'd watch my line. And when I'd get a strike, most of the time it wasn't a bam and run off somewhere. I could just see the line moving around a little bit, and then it would kind of get heavy. And I wouldn't jerk. I would just get the slack and start, and that's exactly, you know, if you took that technique that we learned as kids and went out and drop shotted with it, you'd be right on.
Well, that's what I can tell you is my little twins, Hunter and Jacob, are much better at drop shotting than I am.